The year is 2008. A giant oil tanker, the Sirius Star, sails through the Indian Ocean, carrying $100 million worth of crude oil. It's a floating fortress, nearly the length of an aircraft carrier, and armed with cutting-edge navigation tech. But none of that matters. Just off the coast of Somalia, a handful of pirates, armed with nothing more than AK-47s and a small skiff, board the vessel, seize control, and make international headlines. It wasn't just a hijacking, it was a business transaction. Within weeks, the owners paid a $3 million ransom, dropped in cash from a parachute into the ocean. No one was harmed, the pirates sailed away, and the cycle continued. This is not just about men with guns. This is about a hidden economy where lawlessness fuels profit, and the sea becomes a high-stakes marketplace for kidnapping, ransom, and power. In this deep dive, we're pulling back the curtain on the pirate business empire, how modern piracy works, who profits, and why no one has been able to stop it. The pirate economy, where chaos is currency and the world's most critical shipping lanes are held hostage for cash. Welcome to Empire Secrets. To understand how piracy became a billion-dollar industry, we need to understand why it exploded in Somalia. Somalia hasn't had a fully functioning central government since 1991. After the fall of the Siad Barre regime, the country descended into civil war. Warlords replaced officials, tribes and clans took over coastal territories, and what happens when there's no government watching your waters? Everyone starts taking what they want. European and Asian fishing vessels began illegally trawling Somali waters, depleting fish stocks that local fishermen relied on for survival. Toxic waste was even dumped along the coast, poisoning the sea and the people. Out of desperation, those fishermen picked up weapons. At first, they defended their shores, but then they discovered something far more profitable than tuna: oil tankers. And so, piracy was born, not as rebellion, but as revenge-driven business. By the mid-2000s, piracy off the coast of Somalia wasn't just a trend, it was an industry. Local warlords funded operations, young men were recruited with promises of cash and status. Entire coastal towns became logistics hubs for maritime hijacking. This wasn't anarchy, it was enterprise. Most people imagine pirates as reckless criminals, desperate men with weapons randomly hijacking ships for survival. But modern piracy, especially in Somalia, is something else entirely. It's structured, strategic, and shockingly similar to a startup or a cartel. Behind every hijacking is a hidden web of financiers and operators. Pirates don't act alone. Each mission is backed by investors, local elites, warlords, and even established businessmen who front the capital needed to launch the operation. They cover everything: weapons, boats, GPS equipment, fuel, manpower, and logistics. And like any investor, they expect a return, a cut of the ransom once the mission succeeds. These operations function like small companies, with specialized roles distributed across the team. Scouts are deployed to monitor shipping lanes and identify vulnerable targets. Once a ship is chosen, it's handed over to a group of young armed men, the muscle, tasked with boarding and securing the vessel. Onshore, logistics coordinators arrange safe houses, transport, and security for the hijacked crew. And when it's time to talk money, fluent English-speaking negotiators step in to handle ransom discussions with international shipping firms and insurance intermediaries. When the moment arrives, the pirates strike fast. A high-speed skiff intercepts the cargo vessel, often without a single bullet fired. The ship is boarded, the crew taken into custody, and the vessel is redirected to the Somali coast, where it's anchored just offshore, guarded by armed men and surrounded by coastal lookouts. Then, the business part begins. Ransom demands typically range from $500,000 to $5 million, depending on the size of the vessel, the value of the cargo, and the nationality of the crew. Some cases have reached as high as $10 million, and once the ransom is paid, often dropped in physical cash from a helicopter or delivered by boat, a complex financial breakdown begins. The money is divided with corporate-like precision. Investors who funded the mission take as much as 30%. Pirate leaders who orchestrated the operation often claim another 20 to 30%. The foot soldiers, the ones who risked their lives during the hijacking, receive smaller cuts, usually around $10,000 each. And of course, local clan elders or warlords who control the territory take their own protection fees, ensuring safe passage and political cover. This isn't chaos, it's a profit-sharing system. In some coastal towns like Harad here, piracy evolved into a community investment model, something eerily close to a stock market. Locals were allowed to contribute small amounts of money towards upcoming hijacks. If the mission succeeded, they received a proportional share of the ransom payout. Entire neighborhoods began backing pirate missions, the way others might back a tech startup or a mining venture. At its peak, the shadowy pirate economy was generating over $150 million a year. And that figure only accounts for direct ransom payments. The true scale of the business, including weapons sales, smuggling partnerships, money laundering, and reinvestments, run far deeper. And as we'll soon see, the ripple effects of this enterprise would spread across global shipping lanes, security firms, and even the insurance industry. Piracy wasn't just a symptom of Somalia's instability, it had become a scalable international business, one with profits, shareholders, and an elite infrastructure built around hijacking the sea. Piracy doesn't just end at the point of hijacking. It reverberates across continents, disrupting economies, reshaping logistics, and adding billions to the hidden cost of global trade. Behind every boarded vessel lies a cascade of financial consequences that most consumers never see, but every corporation feels. Off the coast of Somalia lies the Gulf of Aden, a narrow stretch of water that connects the Arabian Sea to the Red Sea, and ultimately to the Suez Canal. This corridor is one of the most vital arteries in global commerce, a lifeline that carries nearly 10% of the world's traded goods. Each year, over 20,000 ships traverse these waters, ferrying oil from the Middle East, electronics from Asia, grain from Ukraine, and raw materials from Africa. These are the ships that power supermarkets, fuel stations, and supply chains across Europe and North America. When Somali piracy surged between 2008 and 2011, it wasn't just an inconvenience, it was an economic crisis. Shipping companies faced a terrible choice: sail through pirate-infested waters and risk multi-million-dollar hijackings, or divert thousands of kilometers around the Cape of Good Hope, adding an extra 10 to 14 days to the journey and millions in operational costs. That detour meant burning more fuel, paying more wages, and delaying deliveries that entire industries depend on. The shipping giant Maersk, one of the world's largest cargo operators, reported that rerouting vessels during the peak piracy era added as much as $3.5 million per month in fuel alone. Multiply that by hundreds of ships and dozens of companies, and suddenly piracy wasn't a fringe issue. It was reshaping global logistics on a corporate scale. To avoid delays, many companies turned to private maritime security firms, hiring armed guards to travel on board high-risk routes. But protection came at a steep price, up to $100,000 per voyage, not including risk surcharges and hazard bonuses. Some firms even outfitted vessels with non-lethal deterrents like water cannons, sonic weapons, and razor wire barriers, essentially turning civilian ships into floating fortresses. Then came the insurance industry, the invisible backbone of global trade. Marine insurers, especially those operating out of London's Lloyd's market, quickly reclassified the Gulf of Aden as a war risk zone. Premiums spiked. Shipping companies were forced to pay hazard surcharges of up to $20,000 to $30,000 per trip, depending on the vessel's size and cargo. For high-value oil tankers, these premiums could balloon into the hundreds of thousands. And those costs didn't stay on the balance sheet. They were passed down to retailers, manufacturers, and consumers. Every product delivered through the Suez Corridor became marginally more expensive, whether it was smartphones, sneakers, or crude oil. Piracy raised the price of globalization itself. According to the World Bank, the total economic impact of Somali piracy during its most active years reached an estimated $18 billion annually. But that number only scratches the surface. It doesn't include the broader ripple effects: stalled shipments, disrupted supply chains, delayed construction projects, spiking commodity prices, or the lost trust in international shipping routes. And here's the irony: in this economy of fear, someone always profits. Private security firms exploded in demand. Insurance companies collected higher premiums. Defense contractors secured government contracts for anti-piracy missions. Even local economies in safer ports like Salalah in Oman or Mombasa in Kenya thrived as ships rerouted away from Somali waters. Fear wasn't just a consequence of piracy, it became its own billion-dollar industry. Piracy at its core is violence. But in the global economy, it morphs into something else entirely, a business model built on disruption. It's not just a threat to ships, it's a parasite that feeds off global trade, a reminder that in a world defined by supply chains, it only takes a few men in a skiff to shake the foundation of trillion-dollar markets. Pirates may pull the trigger, but they're only the front end of a much larger supply chain. At the back are financiers, warlords, corrupt politicians, and even members of the Somali diaspora who bankroll operations and launder profits. Weapons flow in through the black market, often routed through Yemen or smuggled from former war zones. GPS and communication gear is bought with off-the-book cash from corrupt ports or middlemen in Dubai. But the real magic happens after the ransom is paid. That's where the Hawala system comes in. Hawala is an ancient trust-based money transfer network used across the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia. It bypasses traditional banks completely, meaning no account numbers, no digital records, no paper trail. A pirate in Somalia can hand over cash to a local Hawala broker, and within hours, a relative in Nairobi or a fixer in Dubai can withdraw the same amount from another Hawala agent. No questions asked. This system is nearly untraceable, and it's perfect for laundering ransom money. Investigators have linked pirate ransom cash to real estate deals in Kenya, luxury vehicles in the UAE, and investments in Somali political campaigns. Some pirates use their cut to build homes in Garowe and Hargeisa. Others opened restaurants or logistics companies, while top-level financiers quietly purchased properties in Nairobi worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, paid in full in cash. Piracy wasn't just an escape from poverty anymore. It became a shortcut to the upper class. Some pirates invested their earnings into luxury homes in Nairobi, nightclubs in Djibouti, or businesses in the Gulf. A few even went into politics. What began as survival had now turned into full-blown economic ascendancy. As piracy turned the seas into war zones, a new industry emerged from the chaos. An empire of armed escorts, intelligence contractors, and naval firepower. But this wasn't a rescue mission, it was a business. The surge in Somali piracy didn't just shake up the shipping industry, it triggered an arms race on the open ocean. Global demand for protection skyrocketed, and into that void stepped a group of elite private security firms. Companies like Ambury, Drum Cossack, and Control Risks built entire business models around maritime threat response. They offered more than just guards, they sold peace of mind. Armed teams were deployed aboard container ships, tankers, and bulk carriers. Their mission? Deter pirates, defend cargo, and keep global supply chains running. These weren't ordinary security guards. Many were ex-Special Forces operators, former British Royal Marines, Navy SEALs, and other military veterans, now working privately under six-figure contracts. For them, piracy became a paycheck. A single deployment could earn an operative $500 to $1,000 per day, plus bonuses for confirmed engagements or missions in high-risk zones. The tools of the trade evolved fast. Beyond rifles and body armor, firms equipped ships with night vision surveillance, radar jamming systems, and long-range acoustic devices, non-lethal sound cannons that could disable a pirate crew without a single bullet. ships transformed into fortified moving bunkers as security became standard operating procedure for commercial cargo. But private firms weren't the only ones cashing in. Governments saw piracy not just as a threat, but as a strategic opportunity. Between 2009 and 2013, over 30 countries deployed naval forces to Somali waters. NATO launched Operation Ocean Shield, the European Union activated Operation Atlanta, and the United States led Combined Task Force 151, a joint command with international warships patrolling the Gulf of Aden. These missions involved destroyers, helicopters, drones, and surveillance aircraft, costing billions of dollars. And while they were marketed as humanitarian or anti-crime efforts, they also served other interests. Naval presence in East Africa gave countries like the US, China, and France a strategic foothold in a region close to oil shipping routes, Red Sea choke points, and Middle Eastern supply chains. What began as a reaction to piracy became something far more profitable, a permanent industry of threat management. Here's the twist that few talk about. For every pirate attack, more security contracts were signed. Fear wasn't just a byproduct of piracy, it was fuel. The bigger the threat, the more governments spent on patrols, the more shipping companies paid for guards, and the more contractors cashed in. In a twisted way, piracy became its own counter-economy. An ecosystem of defense firms, risk analysts, logistics consultants, and naval suppliers, all of whom profited from the very chaos they were meant to stop. Like a self-sustaining feedback loop, the existence of pirates justified the existence of private armies. And the most telling part, even as piracy declined, the demand for maritime security didn't vanish. The fear had already been monetized. The business of defending ships had become too profitable to dismantle. In the shadow of the pirate economy, another empire had emerged, one that didn't hijack ships, but invoices, signed in response to fear, scaled by geopolitics, and sustained by a single truth. As long as danger exists, someone will always get paid to fight it. By 2013, Somali piracy declined dramatically. The reasons? Shipping companies adapted, using armed guards and secure routes. Naval patrols intensified. Pirate financiers shifted to more stable businesses. And some local communities turned against pirates after years of disruption. For a while, it seemed like the pirate economy had collapsed. But piracy didn't die. It evolved. Attacks moved to West Africa, especially the Gulf of Guinea, where pirates now targeted oil tankers off the coast of Nigeria. These groups are just as organized and just as profitable. And in Somalia, pirate operations have become more discreet, but the conditions still exist: poverty, weak governance, and vulnerable trade routes. In 2021, the UN warned that pirate networks could regroup, especially as economic desperation grows. Some ex-pirates even gave interviews saying they're ready to return to the sea if the price is right. Piracy isn't a relic of the past, it's a mirror reflecting the world's economic gaps. When international companies exploit waters, when governments collapse, when global trade flows through fragile choke points, pirates don't just emerge, they thrive. What looks like chaos is often just unregulated capitalism, a raw version of the same power dynamics that shape our world. The pirate economy may not be listed in any stock exchange, but it's real, it's ruthless, and it's still out there, riding the waves of global trade, one hijacked ship at a time. Subscribe now for more deep dives into the shadowy empires shaping our world. Your desire, your empire.